Good morning. Well, that was already in the bulletin, so we'll keep going here. Well, be careful, little hands, what you do. Recently, I was thinking about this song. I was actually praying and just kind of rejoicing that some things were going well in my life and feeling good about it. I know lots of times you hear the challenges that I'm facing in life, and I probably come across like, boy, Rudy ain't got nothing together. And that's not entirely true. So there was this moment, and I thought about this song, and I realized that the advice given in this song, be careful little hands, and all the verses that we just sang, were really important as I was dealing with some trials and tribulations and temptations in my life. And I just got thinking about how powerful that little song is. The song that, how many of us sang that to our children or to our grandchildren? If you've ever taught Sunday school, you probably sang it in a Sunday school class as well. It's been around, I think they probably sang it in the garden. I don't know. It's been around a long time. And it just I kind of thought, we waste this song on the kids. And I don't really mean that. We don't waste it on them. I think, though, we think of it as a child song, and we don't realize that it really has a pretty important message for us as adults as well. And so since we already sang it, thank you, Sam, we'll not take the time to sing it here. But I do want to work through the verses and just glean some things from that. And hopefully it will resonate with you too. So that first verse is, be careful, little hands, what you do. And the Bible has a lot to say about the things that we do. And this verse resonated with me from James chapter 1, beginning at verse 2. It says, but be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like the man who looks intently at his natural face in the mirror. For he looks at himself and he goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in all his doing. I know lots of times when we sing that song or we think about that, it seems like it's more in line with, the don'ts in life. Be careful, little hands, what you do. Don't do things that are going to hurt you. But, there's that other side of it too, about being a doer of God's will, a doer of God's work. So be careful, little hands, what you do. Make sure that you're doing God's work. The next verse is that be careful, little eyes, what you see. And this is really an important lesson. And when you think about the context here in Matthew chapter 6, beginning at verse 2, the eye is the lamp of the body. And I want you to think about that. Think about that. The eye is the lamp of the body. In some ways, there's a message behind it that the eye is an entry point, if you will. And that's certainly true. And so what do we expose our eyes to? And that's really the warning here. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, and we need to understand this too, why is the eye described as bad here? Is it unhealthy? Is it broken? No. There's nothing wrong with the eye here. In fact, the eye is perfectly healthy. It's about what we've exposed it to. It's about what we've allowed to enter through our eye. Remember, it's like a lamp. It's an entry point. And the point that I want to make here is the eyes don't dart off and do this. We do. We do. What do we put in front of our faces? Okay? What do we put in front of our faces? This is exactly what this verse in this song is warning us about, as well as Matthew 6. Let's go back and start from the beginning again. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be healthy and full of life. In other words, if the things that you allow to be in front of you are healthy, if you control that, and I want you to understand that. Now, do things sometimes just pop up? Of course they do. Of course they do. And what can you do? Let me demonstrate that again. It was a little fast. You look away. You look away. I mean, it really is that simple. But it can be in that moment the most challenging thing that you're faced with. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And think about that in a personal context. How great is that darkness? How miserable are you? How miserable are you? That's really what it's about here. The next verse is, be careful, little feet, where you go. A couple of texts here. Ponder the path of your feet, then all your ways will be sure. And again, as I look at that Proverbs 4 and verse 26, that idea of ponder causes me to think about a word that we've talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks. That word is pause. Take a moment. Think about it. Consider, is this where I want to go? Is this the path that I want to be on? Okay? And it does seem quite a challenge. Once we get started in the wrong way, man, it can be hard to turn it around. It can be hard to turn it around. That's why I think we hear that word ponder, stop, consider, pause. Here's my word, assess. Assess, is this the right way to go? And from Ephesians 5:15 it says, look carefully then how you walk. Look carefully how you walk. Not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. The will of the Lord. Understand what that is. Where are you heading? Where are you heading in life? Are you going the way you want to go? The magic, part of the magic, if you will, or the blessing about being a child of God is He can change the direction of our lives. And often, think about it. Repentance, right? Repentance. It's about going in a different direction. But we have to realize after that initial repentance that led us to our baptism, the obedience of the gospel, we need to be reminded that, every once in a while we got to check it out, right? Are we still going the way that we need to? Are we still going in a direction that will please God? Be careful, little mouth, what you say. Boy, this one really strikes home with me. I think in the tongue, we use the word tongue, but we're talking about the same thing. There's a lot of different little verses and little different wordings with this song over the years. But it got me thinking about my brother John. And if you're paying attention to the updates that I give you, the last time I shared anything with you, we're on the outskirts again. The relationship isn't good, and it's unfortunate. When my dad died here, how long has it been now? A couple years, I guess. And we found out I had a sister, and we have really enjoyed connecting with Jerry, and treating her like big brothers treat little sisters, picking on her, teasing her, Sending her funny birthday cards that talk about how old she's getting. I mean, I got a lot of years to make up with, abusing this younger sibling. And I'm doing the best that I can. And we had a little chat spot that we were all part of, and it was just great, just sharing stories and talking and just getting familiar with each other and learning about my 3 nephews and the significant others in their lives, and it's just been a lot of fun. And then unfortunately one night it blew up because of something somebody said. And now for, I think, probably over a year, the relationship is just not good. Words are so powerful, aren't they? The things that we say. And I don't know about you, but if you're like me, it's not enough just to say one bad thing or one stupid thing or one thing you just should have kept in your head. But it just seems like one leads to another and another. And unfortunately that had happened. And the relationship, I don't know if it's ever going to be repaired. I mean, some terrible, terrible things were said. But anyways, getting up to this, it just kind of hits home for me. But it also illustrates the power of those words. I mean, have any of you ever said something and as soon as you said it, I wish I hadn't said that. And guys, if that hasn't happened yet to you today, there you go. All right, we're halfway through. You might make it. We'll see. But if anyone thinks he's religious, James writes, and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. Absolutely worthless. And that's is not a good place to be. But I want you to think about that. How important are the things that we say to the life that we live? Are any of us caught up in that where we say one thing, but we do something else? Things to think about. Oh, be careful, little ears, what you hear. Romans 10:17 reminds us, so faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. Every afternoon, I've got to deal with middle schoolers that come over in front of my building and hook up with their younger siblings, and they're waiting for the ride home or to take off. And invariably, there's some middle school student blaring their music. And then I got to be the big bad guy. And, if it was just music, I mean, any of you who played golf with me know I'm the guy that's blaring music on the golf course. But of course, what I play is good stuff. There's a difference, But sometimes the music that these young guys are playing, and the girls as well, is I don't want my students hearing that kind of thing. So I'm the big bad guy out there telling them to turn down their music. But again, it's just like, as we talked about the eyes being the lamp of the body, the ears are another powerful entry point. And what do we allow ourselves to listen to? What do we allow ourselves to hear? Sometimes it's not about what we're saying, because we might not be saying anything, but is it any better if I'm not saying it, but I'm listening to it? What's the difference? I mean, in regards to how it affects my relationship maybe with you, my relationship with God, or my ability to live a godly example for my family, for my community, for us. I think it's one of those places where we can really get caught up living a double standard, saying one thing and doing another. Be careful, little ears, what you hear. But again, too, that idea talks about how important it is that hearing is to our relationship with God. Because it's through that hearing that we develop that faith. And without that faith, there is no obedience. There is no obedience. And so again, Maybe some of another perspective we need to take on this song is how are we a helpmate? How are we helping others to see the right thing, hear the right thing, see an example of doing the right thing, see an example of going to the right places? And when we realize in this particular verse how important it is, it's about developing faith. It's about growing and maturing in the Lord. I added this one. At least I think I did. Be careful, little mind, what you think. And I thought I might do it this way. Oh, be careful, little brain, what you think. Oh, be careful, little brain, what you think. But I landed on just little mind here. Again, what's going on in here that you're dwelling on? What's going on in here that you're dwelling on? And then ask yourself, is it positive or negative? We choose what we think about, I remember the old illustration, sitting in an old house and bats flying around in the house, and we're all screaming because we don't want the bat to do what? Land in our hair, And the old illustration is I can't keep that bird or I can't keep that bat from flying around and landing in my head. But you know what I can do? I can keep it from building a nest there. And thoughts are like that. Sometimes they come out of somewhere. Maybe it's the devil scheming. It's that scam attempt like we were talking about in class. And it just pops up. Well, sometimes, and I truly believe this, I think most of the time we probably can't do anything about that. But how long we dwell on it, how long we give it a place to rest in our thinking, that's our choice. That's our choice. And I think that's really the warning here in this verse. Be careful, little mind, what you think. Romans 12:1 says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Be transformed by thinking about things that are holy and not worldly, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is the good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. What I love about that, too, is this idea that right thinking, godly thinking, holy thinking is powerful. It's life-changing. And if it's life-changing, it can be community-changing. And if it's community-changing, it can be world-changing. But like Gilbert shared in class this morning, where does that change start? Right here. And literally, right here. What are you thinking? What are you harboring in here? What are you harboring in here? Is it positive or negative? Does it build up or destroy? So be careful, little brain, what you think. Also along that line, Romans 12:3 says, For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think with sober judgment. Sober judgment, each according to the measure of faith that God has assigned him. Another verse in this song is the chorus, the end of the verse, or the end of the song. And this answers the why. Why were all these other verses so important? And the why is, for the Father up above is looking down in love. Do you realize what a powerful message that is for our children to learn as we teach them that song? And how important it is that we remember as well. Yes, God is watching, not to punish us, but to cheer us on, to support us, to minister to us, to be in fellowship with us. He's looking down in love. It really makes me think of, when Kathy and I were young parents, think about it when you were. Why do parents of young children watch them so closely? Because they're stupid. I'm just seeing if you're awake. There may be some truth to that. Well, honestly, there's a lot of truth to that, right? Because they're learning. They haven't learned that hot hurts. They haven't learned that, jumping off the edge of the garage might break a leg. And why a 2-year-old's up on the garage roof, I don't know either. You may not be watching closely enough if that's going on. But I know some of your kids, and I understand the challenge as well. But we watch because we care. We watch because that's our responsibility as parents, to make sure that they can grow up safely and learn all the wonderful lessons that they need to learn to navigate this world, as well as their own faith with God. And when we see that mistake, what do? It's a teaching moment, isn't it? Now, after the teaching moment, and we see it again, it might become a spanking moment eventually, but probably not at first, right? Because we're teaching. But I think that says the same thing that in regards to our expectations from God. Does God discipline us? Only if He loves you. And that includes all of you. But the scriptures are quite clear about that. God disciplines those that He loves, because it's about nurturing us. It's about shaping us. It's about causing us to become the best that we can be, to be able to reflect His love, His glory, and His grace. So, again, I've already made this point. Why do parents do that? Same reason that God does. God's watchful eye is not harsh, it's loving. Psalms 33 and verse 18 says, "The eyes of the Lord are on those who fear Him, on those whose hope is in His unfailing love." God watches because He cares where our choices lead. He desires lives that reflect His goodness, His wisdom, and His grace. Couple other passages here in the lesson's yours. Chronicles 16:9. "For the eyes of the Lord range throughout the earth to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to Him." And from Psalm 33 verse 18 we read, "The eye of the Lord is on those who fear Him, on those whose hope is in His unfailing love." And Proverbs 15:3 says, "The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping a watch on the wicked and the good." This childhood song calls us to an adult faith, a faith that is intentional, disciplined, and visible. So may our eyes stay fixed on Christ. May our ears stay tuned on His voice. May our words reflect His grace. May our hands serve His purpose. May our feet walk in His ways. May our thinking reflect His holiness. Not because God is watching to punish, but because He's watching in love. Now, as you think about all those parts, if you will, the brain, the eyes, the ears, the mouth, the feet, the hands, how important do you think it is that all of those parts work in harmony? And I want us to think about that. Maybe we've got the hands and the feet working the right way, but the eyes and the ears aren't. I tell you what, that's a recipe for stress. That's a recipe for anxiety. That's a recipe for disappointing God. So if you feel that any of those things in your life are out of balance, maybe today is the day that you come forward and ask for those prayers. Or whatever the reason might be. Today, if you have need, how can we help? Won't you come? Well, together we stand and sing this song of encouragement.